In this video, I discuss gnomes in Dungeons & Dragons. Welcome to my channel. I focus on tabletop role-playing games, video games, and science fiction. I remember the first time I ran into a gnome in Dungeons & Dragons. I went up to a different group that I normally gamed with. They were at a toy store or a game store that was up in Salt Lake. And I hadn't gamed with this group very often. I knew they were around, but they were just inconveniently located for me. But I dropped by one day to play the game, and it never worked out because they had a very large group. I think there were like 15 people playing that day. I was just one of the the newbies coming into the adventure, and that's when you have a group that's large, it's hard to really get involved with it. And I've ran groups larger than that, but it's a little bit cumbersome. It's a bit better with a smaller group. And we were going through this dungeon, and it wasn't a gnome as a player character. It was a gnome as, quote, a monster or an NPC. What I didn't know about was that the party had offended some gnome. And I love there's a line in the player's handbook on page 36, gnomes love jokes of all kinds, particularly puns and pranks. So what had happened is that they had somehow offended this gnome, and I didn't know the whole story because I was just coming in cold. But we're walking down the hallway, and we come up to a set of doors, and the one door opens, and before the character can do anything, he's hit in the face with a pie, and then they hear this hideous laughter, and the door slams shut, and the thing runs off. It was this gnome that they had irritated, but it fits well with this concept even in 5th edition. We were playing original Dungeons & Dragons back then, even before 1st edition. But the gnomes always have had this prank associated with them, or pranks. And I remember throughout the adventure, they would be doing something, would get serious, would have some serious combat, and at the end of the combat, you think you're just vanquishing the foe, and then from the rear, they would hear a laugh, somebody would turn and get hit in the face with this pie, as this gnome would hit them with pies and then run away. And I remember the adventure went on for quite a while, and finally someone managed to get an arrow off and wing the gnome, and the gnome yelled back, "I will get you!" And but it was that type of thing that was going on in the dungeon. And it was memorable because it was so different. You had this lighthearted creature who was hitting people in the face with pies. So as a monster, you could do that if you wanted to have an NPC that did pranks on that. In the party, that sort of gets you into trouble today with modern people. Oh, you're playing pranks on other characters. And, you're not. But that's the type of character that gnomes are. That's the description, even in the player's handbook, that they love puns and pranks. So if you're going to play a gnome, they're going to be somewhat annoying to the party because they love puns and pranks, and there should be no distinction between NPCs and player characters. You should be pulling pranks and doing puns. I'm not the type of person who knows enough puns, but if I was going to play a gnome, I would try and build up a repertoire of puns that I might find at opportune times to put into the adventure, because it would be a suitable punishment on the tip party for having someone who does all these puns because he's a gnome or she's a gnome. That you could do either. But that's the thing about gnomes, is that you have all the puns and pranks that they would be playing on the party as well as the creature. So it makes you think, well, why wouldn't they take something like a supply of pies and instead of hitting the monster with an arrow or a spell, they hit them with a pie, which has got to make whatever it is think for a second. I mean, even if hit something, they have to think about that for a second. It would possibly open up interesting opportunities. But so you have the pie throwing gnome was very memorable. And that's what I would probably recommend if somebody wants to play a gnome. Make sure you have a supply of pranks and jokes to play on both the party, to do on other people. I mean, the things from tying their shoelaces. You could get into nastier things with that. But the idea was that you'd play pranks and puns, and it's almost like you may not want to have gnomes in your player character party because they could be fun to play with, but they could be irritating. They're not as irritating as a Kender who was kleptomaniac, but they like to punish and they like to prank everyone. So thank you. I look forward to learning what you think about this video. Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate all your comments. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give me a thumbs down. I appreciate both forms of feedback. If you're new here and would like to subscribe, you can click on the icon on the left. If you're interested, there's more content on the right.